To a Gypsy's Kiss, the book club. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Bayonet. Stick with us a couple of seconds and we will talk about gypsies. And they aren't us.
So are we flying a plane today?
Why do you say that?
Because you look like a pilot with that
This
headset.
is my shorty
and
pilot shirt. I figured I got my new headset. I'm going with my shorty pilot shirt.
Just like looking at the picture of us going, I must be the co-pilot or flight attendant or something. I don't know.
Didn't I, when we did that Streaming New Mexico thing, didn't we get you all shirts with epaulets on them? I think we did.
Something like that,
I think
yeah.
I made that investment.
Yeah. I think I gave mine to
Okay.
somebody else. Gave it away.
I'm gonna start my
All right.
monitor.
Notifications have gone out. Hello, everybody.
stream status is good.
And
Stream status, you're supposed to say check.
check.
Okay.
Roger that.
Roger that. So before anybody asks, let me answer. I buy these by the dozen. They're great for overseas because they're very wash and wear. They're actually pilot's shirts, and you can get them in short and long sleeve. And there was one other thing I was going to say about them. And they have pockets.
And you wore it for your little project.
And I wore it for my project, the National Exploratory Space Team.
That's right.
You'll have to see that one day.
Let's get started with some housekeeping.
Yeah.
Housekeeping. We want to thank our moderators, Jimmy Fast, Man in the Barn, Joel Lewicki, Brian Eagle, and Jason Eunice. Today's presentation, which should be very short because it's a one-page chapter basically, will be followed by open Q&A. Let's try to stick to things about the book to start with, and then we'll get into anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, let's keep doing these open Q&A.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the biggest AGK panel ever. That's coming up on May 9th, 2018, our fantastic fan appreciation event. We do have a video out about it that we released yesterday, and we talked about it last night during our other panel show. And
P.S. I put the link to the video in the description box below. So if you'd like to participate, click on that link. You'll be taken to a video that explains how you can participate.
there you go.
I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to raise my hand.
Oh, because, you know, I interrupt you so often.
Ouch. Are you finished with this one?
Uh-huh. All right, let's get into the book. Today, Thursday, April 12th, from the Forrest Fenn Book Club, Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 9, Gypsy Magic.
All 2 pages of it.
All 2 pages,
So,
pages 42 and 43.
May I introduce our wine?
Oh, go ahead.
Today we're drinking Canyon Oaks, a California Merlot, 2016. It's got a nice little flavor to it.
Does it?
Yeah.
Have you tasted it?
I haven't. I'm going to wait
Oh.
for you. Yeah. Here's to Gypsies.
Yay.
No offense, but it tastes like every California Merlot. I don't know. It's got a little nice
nice.
little after thing. Yeah. All right.
I like it.
That's not so bad.
It's not... It doesn't burn as it goes down like some do.
Some Merlots, yeah. Okay, and then the last thing that you need to know is as we start the chat, if you'd like to contribute to our project, you can use the super chat button at the bottom of the page. It's the $sign. Click on that, and a nice window will open up. You can donate any amount from 99 cents if you're on iOS to $499.99 if you're on iOS. But make sure that if you decide to make a donation, please ask a question, because the benefit of having Super Chat is that it enables us, it enables YouTube to highlight your question and move it effectively to the top of the queue. So please take advantage.
And you know, even if you just want to say something like, have you ever seen anybody as pretty as me? That would be a question.
Yeah, that's a $25 Super Chat right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we ready to get
busy? I'm going to go back to full screen. Okay.
Let's get started with the chapter.
You are on rock
Did
and
you
roll.
have anything you wanted to say about the art or the postmark or anything not words?
There was nothing. The only strange thing I found about the postmark is that he repeats the less important Katy railroad tracks, and I wonder if there's not something in there. And also, as far as the postmarks, I don't know how many of you know this, but you can actually go to gypsykiss.com and click on the photo albums menu, and if you scroll down, you'll find the all high-resolution images of all the postmarks from both The Thrill of the Chase and Once Upon a While. So you're welcome to use those in your research if you feel like there's something there. The only confusion for me was the establishment of timing. Once again, they muffed the date on the postmark, so it was hard to tell. Yeah, they smeared it. I guess muffed is not quite the word that I was looking for.
Probably not.
And what I was confused by was the graphic conflict between the picture of he and his friends, his brother, he and his friends, and the gypsies. So I wondered whether or not the image was used kind of to establish time frame, because to me, Skippy looks like he's about 10 and Forrest looks like he's about 8. So that would have put it in the 1938 time frame. So, and that almost seems reasonable when you come to the postmark. So let's go with your analysis, and I'll add to it as necessary. Wait, I left mine over there.
You can just read off mine. It's okay.
Yeah.
We don't do it at the same time anyway.
So here we are with my new microphone. Page 42, paragraph 1. In the spring, when the weather was warm, I used to raise the window that was at the side of my bed and put my pillow on the sill. I slept that way whenever I could. The Katy railroad tracks were about a half-mile from our house, and late at night I could hear the steam engine puff and the engineer blow their air horns. It was a soothing sound, and sometimes I think I can still hear it when the wind is coming out of the east.
All right. So Fenn is starting off this chapter with a memory of listening to the sounds of trains at night as he fell asleep and began to dream. So, could the next part of the story be a recurring dream, or was it real?
So, guys, I just noticed we're having that same kind of lockup that we did last night with YouTube. If you should lose this, don't go away. Just refresh your screen. YouTube has been kind of clunky the past couple of days, at least, maybe before this. But I noticed that we're having a higher number of dropouts. We haven't changed anything here. So it's just YouTube being YouTube, okay? But again, if for some reason we drop out, don't panic, don't leave the room. Just refresh your screen, and we'll come back to you. Page 42, paragraph 3. The screen was easy to unlatch. The screen, I'm sorry.
The window screen.
Sorry, the screen.
The window screen.
The window screen was easy to unlatch, so I jumped to the ground and run as fast as I could through the cemetery and across a wide field toward the firelight. Page 43, paragraph 1. I thought the girls saw me as they swirled by, but no one said anything. I touched them with my eyes and became part of it as I moved back and forth in the sway. I always stayed until the fire died down and the music stopped. But sometimes I still hear the music in my dreams.
Well, besides firelight, swirling flames, swirling dancers, that sort of imagery of movement and flame that is evoked in this, which is sensory, but I don't know that it applies to anything. Fenn leaves his home late at night and describes this scene as if he is in a dream. He even ends the chapter with the phrase, "in my dreams." The girls dancing by the fire are out of reach and don't say anything to him. He touches them with his eyes and imagines himself a part of the dance and music making, much like you would in a dream. You're not in the middle of it, you're observing. I believe Fenn is telling us that as a young man he dreamed of having adventures. Watching others in their travels and revelry was as close as he could come while he was still a child living in his parents' home. He was so attracted to the gypsy camp that he remembers it with excitement to this day, whether it was real or just a dream. The chapter title, Gypsy Magic, implies the same ethereal quality as a rainbow. It is something that only a few can see or appreciate and disappears after a short time. You want to ponder these questions?
So, may I tell some stories? Oh, questions to ponder. Does this coincide with Fenn's rainbow where his treasure resides? Did his special place come to him in a dream, or did he dream about it after finding it? Do steam locomotives figure in the poem Where Warm Waters Halt? So, can I tell a couple of stories?
Yes, okay. It's your turn.
A couple of things.
Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
So, number one, the whole concept of steam locomotive. This is when I became interested in the possibility that there was a solution near the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad in northern New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And as I researched it, what you discover is that as the train travels, there's a horseshoe-shaped part of the track, and the train comes to along that horseshoe track, and there's one of their water towers, because a steam locomotive has to refresh its water every so often if it doesn't have one of those cars that follows it with water and fuel. Mm-hmm. And but it was interesting to me because it was not the first time that railroads had been mentioned. And so I started researching it, and I discovered there's one of those towers on that horseshoe-shaped turn before it enters Colorado. And that hunters and fishermen and backpackers will leave the train at that point and hike down into the gorge, which of course stimulated the thoughts about the canyon down as opposed to downstream, literally canyon down into the gorge. So I followed that for a while, and I believe that Stephanie 30acre, when she first started her searching, actually followed that, went and took the train ride to see what she could find. I don't know if she ever followed up on it, but I thought it was an interesting position. You
should ask our viewers if you've also taken that trip on that train. Let us know.
Yeah, has anybody been on the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad ride with the intent of determining, and if you have, did you take the ride with the intent of determining whether or not there might be something there in terms of rationalizing the poem Where Warm Waters Halt and Canyon Down, etc., etc.? So, but then there was something else about this particular chapter that interested me, and it deals with Fenn's. It doesn't deal necessarily with either the poem or finding the treasure, but to me, it has to do with another facet of Fenn's personality. So when I read that last part, and I'm going to read it again, and this is after the sentence that begins, "The screen was easy to unlatch." So I'm going to read from the bottom of page 42 through the top of page 43. By lying on my stomach under a wagon and pushing the tall grass aside, I could really see up close. The flashing flames made dancing shadows that seemed to move with the music, and there were times when I thought the girls saw me as they swirled by. But no one said anything. I touched them with my eyes and became part of it as I moved back and forth in the sway. I always stayed until the fire died down and the music stopped. But sometimes I still hear it in my dreams. Before I go back to that, there's a lot of sensual imagery, at least it struck me in that way, a lot of sensual imagery in those few sentences. When I was a child in the 1950s, the gypsies would come by. Do me a favor and just refresh that. I'm kind of worried about what the stream is doing right now. The gypsies came through Santa Fe. Now, at this time, they weren't in horse-pulled wagons. They used to come in caravans of cars that were pulling these small trailers, small living trailers, camping trailers. I recall them the men always being dressed in suits, and they were kind of that very baggy but good-looking pinstripe suit with wide lapels and double-breasted. And I was always fascinated. I'm not a hat person, but I was always fascinated with the way they wore their hat. My father lived in a time where gentlemen who wore suits also wore hats, and he would wear one. And he wore it in the traditional manner. I'd call it the Clark Kent style, the traditional fedora. every once in a while, if we were out on a picnic, he'd wear a hat and the brim was turned up. And that was, and kind of pushed back on his head. And that was his way of saying, we're having an easy time right now. You know, a picnic or something like that. And I promised myself one day that if I ever, when I grew up, I would buy a hat and I would wear it like the gypsies. And the way the gypsies wore their hats was they'd take the fedora, they'd put it on their head, and then they kept brushing back the forward front part of it so that it folded up in this way, just that section. It was very debonair, I thought. I was impressed by it. They were always very well dressed, if somewhat, you know, the clothes had obviously been used a lot, but they were always well dressed. And the women were very nicely dressed, although they didn't dress like European gypsies or that they might have dressed for during Fenn's time. But here's what was interesting about the gypsies when they were coming through town. The families that had lived in Santa Fe for hundreds of years knew the gypsies, and they used to do business with them. So when they came into town, although they never admitted it to the gypsies or anyone else, there was two things that they wanted to do. Number one, they wanted to do some kind of business with them, usually in the way of watches and jewelry and things like that. The second thing that they did is they always warned about the gypsies stealing the children. So don't let the children out of your sight because the gypsies will take them. And kind of my dream was, oh, maybe if I go and kind of step aside, they'll steal me and I can go off with them. Because my vision of the gypsies wasn't quite, well, it was romantic in a way, but not romantic and sensual in the same way that Fenn's was. My vision was the travel and adventure associated with getting in a caravan and heading someplace to where you didn't know next and bartering with the folks in that town, etc., etc. Afterwards, they always talked about how they didn't talk about the gypsies. They didn't talk about where the jewelry came from, because I imagine everyone in Santa Fe knew that when they bought something from a gypsy as they came through town, they also knew that that gypsy had probably stolen it from another town, as they did while they were in Santa Fe. And the funny part was that somebody, I remember this one situation happening once. And the once was, my mother was having, this was after the gypsies, and the women were all sitting around the table, and they were comparing the jewelry that they had gotten. And one of the women said, well, you got your jewelry, but they took mine, because the gypsies, of course, always stole jewelry when they were in town. And she said something like, they took my 1 carat diamond ring when they were here, so maybe it'll sell someplace else, but keep an eye out for it. If they come back, you can buy it back from me, and I'll buy it for you. And then a little while later, that particular woman left, and all the women in the room started talking about the fact that she never had a 1 carat diamond ring. She was just making that up, and the gypsies didn't actually take it. So here's the point with all that. So my vision of the gypsies was this caravan of people who traveled back and forth across America and bartered and peddled and exchanged. And in the evenings, they would circle around the campfire and they would play music and they would dance. And I always hoped that they were Hispanic gypsies so that they danced flamenco and not just some Romany version of flamenco. I never saw them. I never went out at night because we weren't allowed to go out at night to go look for the gypsies because they would steal us and then they'd take off with us. So I never did see a little white boy with a gypsy. So I don't think they took a lot of, well, they took kids that looked like gypsies, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to try and make this point finally. My point is, I had this vision of the gypsies that was romantic, but not in a sensual way. It was very practical and pragmatic, the sense of adventure. As you read Fenn's description of his relationship with the gypsies, it includes words like flashing flames and dancing shadows and moving with the music. I thought the girls saw me as they swirled by, but no one said anything. I touched them with my eyes and became part of it as I moved back and forth in the sway. I always stayed until the fire, and who knows which fire he's referring to, died down. And to me, that is a very sensual description of the relationship that Fenn had with the gypsies. What that meant to me is that you can extrapolate that sense of sensuality associated with gypsies to his feelings about his life of adventure. So for him, the life that he spent traveling and exploring and anthropologizing. Is that a word? I just made that up.
No. Drink some more wine.
Practicing anthropology, practicing archaeology all over the world in various forms, whether he was in the Air Force or not, was actually to him not only a romantic, in a romantic way as in Indiana Jones, but in a sensual way as well. And that's a really interesting way to look at your life. Some people are very good at that. I'm not. I'm too practical. I'm too pragmatic. For me, the romantic part is always the adventurous part. But to see how he felt about that, and then to extrapolate that and expand it into the entirety of his life, tells me that Fenn is not only a romantic, but a sensual person. And so you have to look at a lot of the things that he says and does in that context. I don't know whether it has anything to do with the treasure or his special place, but I'm sure that Fenn could have sat in his special place before he hid the treasure and had that same sense of the wind and the trees and the fires and the flames and the swing and the dancing, etc., etc. So it could be as simple as some place where another group of people, like the Gypsies, not necessarily the Gypsies, could have found themselves, and Fenn not only tapped into that physically, but tapped into it emotionally and romantically and sensually. So that's all I've got.
Okay, I think that's enough for one page of book.
And that's only after a half glass of wine. Imagine what. Yeah.
All right, are you ready to move along?
Mm-hmm. You want to go to chat?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put you over the chat window. We're going to leave it full frame right here.
Do we need to turn the air off, or is it okay?
Oh, can you hear it?
I
thought I did turn it off. Okay, wait. I think we have to do... Let me advance this slide first, and then we'll come back to it, okay? And then we'll go turn the air on.
Oh, I can do it. You're all hooked in.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Don't forget the...
Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to switch Shelley over to the chat room so that she can see that. When she gets back, she can start with the chat. Ooh, okay.
Oh.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go.
Go. All right. Hello, everybody. Joel Lewicki is here. One of our moderators, Man in the Barn, another moderator. Hello. Deborah Jensen, Joel Lewicki. Toby, the mic sounds good. Yay.
Well, please, after last night, but thank you. We appreciate it.
Dave Erickson, Jimmy Fast, another moderator. James Cruz, hello. Danny A.G., Cindy Guess, Amy Smith from Arkansas, DeCall Thomas, Steve Smitherman, Sea Monkey Vacation. Pilot Toby is rerouting his neural pathways to think like Fenn. Cute.
Epaulets, baby. Epaulets.
And if you don't know what he's talking about, make sure you watch Tuesday's show. JL, looking good. To the fine folks in Albuquerque. Okay. Andrew West, glad to be here. Dr. Brown, hello from Fort Collins. Amy Smith. Toby, are you a pilot?
Amy, I did in earlier years when I lived in Virginia acquire my private pilot's license, my VFR, for VFR flight rules. But after the children started growing, I just didn't have the time. And I could never afford to own my own aircraft, so I belonged to a flying club, the flying club down at Fort Belvoir. Not Fort Belvoir, what's the place south of Alexandria? Anyway, I belonged to, because I was in the service, I belonged to a military flying club, so I used to rent aircraft from them and take short flights, take the children. But as we started getting busy with the children, I just didn't have the time anymore. So there was a point at which I let my license and my medical expire. So, but yes, I did. I love it.
And he pilots drones too.
And now I fly.
He's licensed for that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he doesn't wear the shirt and the headset when he does
yet,
that.
But I think, you know what, I'm going to start.
I think you should.
out there in the boonies.
Yeah. All right. Danny A.G. says, have you guys seen the videos from Man Alone? I think Toby's watched a few.
I try to watch all the videos of the folks that are commenting on the Forrest Fenn, the hunt for Forrest Fenn's treasure, and I always do it from a very practical perspective. What are they talking about? How can we help them? Because as I've said in the past, I really feel strongly about building the community here on YouTube. And so if there's anything I can do to help them by mentioning their videos or just going and making a comment on their videos, or perhaps one day having them join us on a panel session, we'd like to do that. We'd like to do that for them, and we'd like to do that for the community. So in answer to your question, I have seen them. He has an interesting style and a lot of comments, and I think as he goes forward, he just went over 1,000 subscribers, which means he can, as far as YouTube is concerned, monetize his product, and that's always...
You have to have 4,000 hours of watch time first. 4,000 hours in the past year.
Is it the past year?
Yeah.
I think he may already have that, because he had a lot of material on metal detecting before he was primarily metal detecting, with every once in a while popping into Forrest Fenn. Recently it's been Forrest Fenn because he's talking about going out in the field himself.
I see.
But I didn't realize this, but he recently suffered a heart attack, and so he's recovering from that. But he seems like a interesting man, and yeah, he's one of the several. I mean, like I said, I watch all of the folks. I watch the videos of all of the folks that do post videos on YouTube related to Forrest Fenn. And when I can, and if I think it's appropriate, I'll make a comment on it to let them know that we're watching, and not in a creepy way. You want to do
Always watching. What?
Why don't you take that for the moment?
Okay. Where was I? Virgil Kane says hello from sunny Iowa. And Sledneck is here. Brian Eagle, one of our other moderators, is here.
Hi, Brian. Good to have you here.
And Amy Smith. Jeff Treese, hello from Boise. Danny A.G. Journeyman is here. Jeremy Branson, hello. DeCall Thomas.
Did we say hi to Dr. Brown?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to do so as well?
Hi, Dr. Brown. How are you doing? Thank you for your recent contributions, both online, both in the chat room and with our PayPal.me account.
DeCall Thomas, do you see Little Fenn as a possible representation of the treasure chest on location, like a map?
You know, DeCall, we've struggled with that question. We actually have a video on it, and we played with it for a little while, but the more that we played with it, the more we realized that his special place is more likely associated with his adult life than with his childhood. And the reason we came to that conclusion is we spoke to a couple of, for lack of a better description, shrinks, and asked them talked to them about how special memories are formed. And they said, although basically, I'm going to paraphrase here a great deal. I'm going to compress and paraphrase. Although you do have special memories as a child, the ones that become the most important to you are the special memories that you acquired and developed as an adult. And the reason primarily is that special memories, and I may be straying a little bit away from your question here, but special memories are a complex adult process rather than a child's process. A child has too much going on in their head in terms of their ability to process it, to start thinking about special places. We were talking about this last night, Shelley and I. I've actually been to Yellowstone as a child, but I have very little memory. We were there more than once. We were at Yosemite as a child, and I have very few memories of it until I went back as an adult. And Carmel, and it was the same thing. So I think developing memories, special places as a result of memories as a child, is far more difficult than it is as an adult.
I agree. Children are more in the present, and adults are the ones who, live in the past or think about the future. And we have a harder time being present because of that. And thinking about that, I was just thinking about
one of my daughters and I were having a conversation right after she graduated from high school, literally the day after the graduation. And we were having this conversation about the future and things. And one of the things that she said was, those were the best years of my life. And I thought I corrected her. I said, no, the best years of your life are ahead of you. To this point, those may have been the best years of your life, but you always have to look in the context of your future. And you've got to hope that your future includes more best years of your life. And ideally, the best year of your life should be the last one, right? If it all works out right. And I have the same feeling about this. I think the best years of Fenn's life occurred sometime between the time he left the Air Force and now. Not that he didn't have other times, and not that, you know, when he left the Air Force, he couldn't have looked back at that point and said, those were the best years of my life. Fenn doesn't strike me as that kind of person. Fenn strikes me as a forward-looking person that would say, those are some pretty damn good years. I hope the following years are even better. And I think that's when you start thinking about the future and the context of the future and how places and things and people become special to you.
Okay. And hello to John Polasic. I hope I say that right. I don't know. Polasic?
Sure. Polasic, yeah.
Polasic. Okay. Let's see. Lori James is here. David Dow.
May I address Danny AG? Yeah, Danny, I don't know what's going on with YouTube. Recently, it started, we noticed it last night where we had a big dropout. I can see it on here. I know we're dropping out here. We haven't changed anything. YouTube is just dealing with it. So like I said, if we do drop out, because I can see it, I can actually see it on our statistics here when everybody drops out, don't leave the chat room. Just click the refresh button on your browser and it'll come right back. YouTube has been having trouble with it recently.
Dr. Brown, regarding steam engines, were the brakes ever hydraulic and operated by steam? Apparently you're supposed to be some sort of expert in everything.
I do not know the answer to that question, Dr. Brown. I think the brakes are there. They don't have brakes necessarily, at least on steam locomotives, on the older steam locomotives. The newer trains do have disc brakes on them. But in the olden days, steam locomotives, the braking process simply consisted of stopping the motion of the wheels or slowing the motion of the wheels down by not feeding it steam and allowing the pressure of the hydraulic piston that's driving them. So it's basically a compression factor is how you slow them down, and then eventually you stop the piston because it's not like the inside of an engine where it has to keep running. So you slow a train down by reducing the amount of pressure on the driving piston, and then eventually just stopping that piston. That's the equivalent of brakes.
Lori James wonders if the old wagon in his backyard reminds him of the Gypsies.
I think it could, considering how he describes his relationship with the Gypsies, it could very well be that. Now, if I remember correctly, not that I've ever been there, the wagon in his backyard is an old wooden spoked steel wheel wagon, more associated with the Western progress than with the Gypsies. The Gypsies used to pull wagons that had regular automobile tires on them, rubber tires on them. So, but it is very possible, considering the central effect the Gypsies seem to have on him. I guess it could very well be that. Kind of go back in the backyard and dream about the Gypsies.
And David Dow wonders, has anyone ever verified if the train tracks were really that close to his house, or was it an embellishment? And is that a possible clue?
Well, you can actually Google Temple. You can go to the property on which his house resided. You can see a cemetery, and if I remember correctly, it's to the east of his house. It's not right next door. And you can actually see train tracks running through Temple. Whether or not they're active, I don't know. I mean, you've never had a Google shot of train in them, but you can see some of these features in Temple, although I believe Fenn compressed them in his mind. So the cemetery isn't right next door, and the train tracks aren't right on the other side of the cemetery. There's distances between them. But yeah, you can see them, and it is very possible as a child, for as adventurous as he was, that he said he had been in that cemetery before, so crossing the cemetery wasn't a big thing for him.
Dick Carl Thomas wants us to discuss shapes, such as the dancing gypsy on the bronze bell, or jars. Do you see anything significant in the shapes?
DeCall, that's a really interesting thought. I haven't, but only because I haven't thought about it in the past. I'll have to go back. I have started a project, although I'm hesitant to share it because I think I'd start running into copyright issues. But I have started a project of making images of each of the graphic images in the book, and that'll give me an opportunity to study them a little bit further. But Nicole, I haven't quite done that study yet.
And Jeff Mann is here, and Fibonacci, hello. We have a little in-house discussion going on about psychology and dirty minds. And no, all right, so they say that sometimes they're losing video, but the chat keeps going. Mm-hmm. And Axarben is here. Hey guys, Jason's here. Hello, Jason. Let's see, it popped, didn't it? It did. Okay, here we are. And DeCall is again bringing up the omegas on the wagon ends. Sven's first female attraction. It could be.
DeCall, I don't see the question. Let's see if you can rephrase that so that it's some kind of question. Regarding trains, would steam be where warm waters halt? Amy, Shelley and I have talked about that on a number of occasions. Steam isn't warm. It's water literally transposed into a gaseous form, and that happens at 212 degrees. There is nothing warm about that. If you've ever been near a water tower in the summer, as it absorbs sun, the water does warm up. But I don't think it's necessarily the steam on the train. That's no longer water. It's water. It's gas. So it's not really water, and it's too hot to be warm.
Danny A.G. Fenn said that the clues.
Yeah, I know. It's going to keep doing it.
Fenn said that the clues in the poem lead you to certain places. Do you guys think that there are hints in the book that lead us to where warm waters halt?
So I'm going to state our opinion on the matter. We believe that where warm waters halt is so important in the context of finding the treasure. It's if you believe that it's the starting point, it's so important that if there is a hint in the book, it is a hint that tells you where to find, that helps you, not necessarily tells you, that helps you find where warm waters halt. Because it is our opinion that if you don't know where warm waters halt is, then you're wasting your time.
And Fibonacci says, what about the link between the gypsies and pioneer wagon trains? Also, the dancing around the fire reminds me of the book, The Beat of the Drum, The Whoop of the Dance.
Yes.
Hello to Sean Malloy and Denise Bagley, Wayne Cook. Becoming the epicenter of the community we are. If our video wouldn't keep dropping out, we
Hi
could
guys,
be.
I wish you could catch your panels on Wednesday night. You guys are becoming the epicenter of the community. We want to be part. I don't know necessarily that we want to be the epicenter, as long as we can have a positive effect on the growth. We want to be part of a growing community, especially on YouTube, where other YouTubers are using YouTube capabilities, because you don't have to have 1,000 subscribers to live stream, do you?
No.
Yeah. So any YouTuber with a channel, Fenn, can live stream. And we think bringing the community together for conversations like this, we think it's an important element of growth of the community. So as much as we don't think of ourselves as the epicenter, we think of ourselves as a place that people can come and engage in the conversation, whether it's with us or anybody else. And one other reminder, guys, if you're going to ask us a question, make sure you precede your question with an ampersand, AGK, so that we know it's for us and not for just the other folks in the room. Jason Eunice. Hi, son. How are you doing?
Jeff Mann, are you concerned that when you reach your search area, you may find other searchers, or that the area has been combed over by hundreds of previous searchers?
We are not concerned. We do know that we've been in search areas that have been combed over by other searchers, because when we mention our search areas, other searchers tell us they've been there in great detail. But as we've said more often than not, we have yet to meet another searcher out on a recon. We've never run into another searcher, at least anyone who, introduced themselves or gave us a sense they were a searcher. We see fishermen, we see picnickers as we're heading up the side of the mountain, a lot of traffic, but we have never run into anyone who said, hey, I'm searching for Forrest Fenn's treasure too. Because if we did, we'd have to bear spray him. No, we wouldn't do that. We are just losing right and left. That's too bad.
I don't understand Journeyman's comment to you.
Where is
this
it?
One.
AGK, in the chapter, F flows out of the window and down the street, even through the graveyard. Where, as the chapter before, it was a choir. Give this chapter more of a hint. Treasures for Journeyman, you are going to have to restate that in a form of a question. I don't know where you're going with it, and it's hard for me to respond to a question when the question is your thoughts, because my thought is anything is possible at that point. But if you could characterize that in a form of a question that starts with what, where, when, who, or how, I could probably answer it for you, or at least I try.
Danny AG wants to share his thought with us.
Danny, we ask folks, since we're actively searching for the treasure, we ask folks not to share their solutions with us, as it would compromise our solution and it would compromise yours. So we would appreciate if you would not do that, please. But, share it on here. When we finish the show and process it, make a comment and put it in the comment. You can share it with other people and get their responses to it.
Somebody said hi. Oh, Eric Schmidt's here.
Hi, Eric.
Danny AG says, I noticed that Colorado is the only state that Fenn doesn't have a chapter about. Am I right?
I'm not sure that he has a chapter about New Mexico. I don't know.
Because he lives in Santa Fe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wyoming. Yeah, that's right. I don't think he talks about chapter. I don't think Colorado is even mentioned in the Throne of the Chase.
Michael O'Connell's here. He says, I find the Gypsy chapter confusing if it is trying to hint toward the treasure search. Yeah. They are all pretty confusing in that regard.
Yeah, we don't think there is anything in any chapter that's going to point you, that's going to really help you. And he's told us more often than not, more often than once, that the clues are in the poem, and there's some hints in the book that will help you with the clues. So if there are hints in the book in any of the chapters, including the aberrations out on the edge, they are more likely to help you better understand the clues than they are to help you find the treasure. I know that doesn't sound like much of a distinction, but there's a hint in the book is at least once removed from the treasure. It is directed at the poem, according to him.
Andrew West, and I just touched it. Oh, here we go. Okay. Didn't West Yellowstone turn their old steam engine train station into a museum or visitor center?
Andrew, I don't know. Maybe somebody else in the room can answer that question for you.
Oh, yep. Michael O'Connell says yes.
Okay.
He's on it. Virgil Kane, will a train stand the test of time? Would the tracks and such be there 100 years from now?
No more than any of the other. It is our opinion that the only clue that will stand any test of time is the blaze. Other than that, they're all malleable.
And hello to Rick Plank from Cincinnati.
And like we said last night, if that Yellowstone supervolcano blows, all bets are off anyway.
Mm. Going through the conversation here. Dale Richards is here.
We just keep losing signal. See, but it tells me that the stream health is good, so I don't know what...
Jason says there's
YouTube
ongoing audio and video issues, but it's mostly on the YouTube side.
Yeah.
And John Dalton is here from Worland, Wyoming. Dalton is my maiden name.
Dalton Canyon is one of my favorites. Well, it was actually one of my father's favorite fishing locations on the Pecos. And when I only have a little time on a Saturday, it's the first place I'll stop to do some trout fishing. Dalton Canyon on the Pecos. Dale, you do not need to apologize for being late. That's why we record these things.
We're glad you showed up at all.
I am really sad about how this stream just keeps dropping out. It says the stream status is good. I don't know what else to...
Sean Malloy, I think the main issue with trying to find hints in the book is tying them back to the poem. Once you have a tie back, then you just have to measure your confidence in the hint. And it's true. When I'm doing these analysis each week, I do try to figure out, okay, so what does that mean for... could this in any way be a hint? And I look for that, and sometimes it's quite the stretch to find one.
While you're doing that, scroll the screen up.
It's all the way up.
Okay, let me borrow this for just a sec. I'm going to try and see if I change the stream rate. I don't know whether I can do that, actually. But, no.
Well, at least everybody's getting a chance to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can see us.
The chat doesn't seem to be affected. It's just our stream.
Okay. Well, I think we're ready to be done.
Okay, are we? Is that it?
I think so. We were at the bottom.
Shuck.
They were just talking to each other.
HKA guys, I wanted to ask you about your opinions about the grave of Ephraim Brown. Danny, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about it. That's the first time I've seen anything about it. I'll look. So maybe the next time I will have a better answer for you. Let me get this from DeCall. AGK restate, is that a gypsy girl on the bronze jar? Do you have an opinion about the omega shapes on both ends of the wagons? I don't know to which bronze jar you were referring. I don't recall seeing images of any bronze jars in which I thought there was anything but animals and amphibians and insects. I don't remember seeing a gypsy. I'll have to go back and look at them. And do you have opinions about the omega shapes on both ends of the wagons? DeCall, I have never put, and please don't take offense at this, I'm one of those people who has never put any stock in the omegas because they were identified as a colophon, which is not unusual to place in a book. So I've never put any weight in terms of the search into the omegas. And to me, they look like horseshoes. The few times that I've even considered them, to me, they look like horseshoes. And then I start getting hung up on the horseshoe imagery that is in the book. So,
and you have to keep continuing to ask yourself every time you come up with something like omegas, and I see gypsies, and I everybody does this. I see this. What about that? Ask yourself, does an answer to that get me any closer to the treasure, or is it just another rabbit hole?
A shiny object.
A shiny object.
What's interesting about having Shelley as a partner is that she's the one that asks me that question. I'll say something that to me sounds perfectly rational, and her question is, how does that get us closer to the treasure? And so then I have to go from what I thought was perfectly rational into a process of thinking about it until I can come back to her with an answer that satisfies her question. Was, oh, if I'm discussing omegas and she says, how does that get us closer to the treasure? I've got to figure out how the omegas get us closer to the treasure, rather than just saying there's something important about it. And again, please don't take offense at I'm using this as an example. Rather than just saying that the omegas mean something, I have to tell her what they mean and how what they mean gets us closer to the gets us closer to the treasure.
Oh my goodness.
What?
Lori James, my ceiling glass shade just fell and broke all over the floor. Yikes.
Oh gosh.
Wow, that's
very gypsy magic-like,
I
isn't
wonder
it?
if that's
Maybe we're
having
not.
an earthquake there, or... Well, I'll tell you what, Mercury is stationed and should be going out of retrograde at this point. So in a couple of days, it's going to move forward again. Everything should settle down at that point, including all this YouTube mess and all the other problems we're having, like things falling out of the sky.
Dale Richards, do you think the circled wagons could be a wagon train fighting over Indians like in the old westerns? Dale, two things. Anything is possible. And B, if I did think that, how does that get me closer to the treasure? Danny A.G., he is buried there all by himself. Reminds me about the lonely grave he found in Vietnam. Where is Ephraim Brown buried?
Here he said.
Oh.
Well, it just says the Oregon Trail. I think it's in Wyoming. He said last night, I think.
Oh, okay.
Did anybody have an answer for us about if you had gone on the Cumbres and Toltec railroad? If you had taken that ride, if you have, just let us know and what you thought about it.
X-Arbin asks, what do you think of this chapter as a whole? Do you think it's a story he likes, or any direction he could lead us? So X-Arbin, like each of the chapters in the memoir, they are a moment frozen in time, like all memoirs are. If you want a comparison as to how a memoir expands upon a person's life, read Thomas Jefferson's autobiography. And it's about that thick. It's dense reading, but it is a very graceful and complete description of his life. What Fenn did in terms of writing his memoir was he sat down and he pulled out the memories to him that were significant, and he put them in this book. And his intent was to write a memoir that included the idea of a treasure and a poem that contains 9 clues. So the memoir was a way, the development of the memoir was a way to do all of that. And he was surprised at how easy it was. Any one of us could do it. Any one of us could go back in our lives and pull these vignettes, right? Ask Jason how many times he's heard the story about how I was wounded in Vietnam, right? So I can pull out that vignette. Now, in the context of my memoir, that story has significance to me because it had an impact on making me who I was. Whether or not that story relates to the poem and the fact that because at this point in the context of a memoir, the story about the gold and how he collected it, put it in a treasure chest, and wrote a poem to describe where he hid it is simply part of that memoir. So I think the memoir, in this case, and why we're researching it, tells us more about Fenn, much more, 1,000 times more, about Forrest Fenn than it does about finding the treasure. Now, knowing Forrest Fenn may help you get closer to the treasure, but I don't think the book is a container for the treasure. I think the book is a container for his memoirs, each of which is this vignette that stimulated a special memory in it. And the skill that he had was being able to transcribe that onto paper, to be able to sit down. And I know that sounds easy to do, but I also know from my perspective how hard it is to do it, because I'm a very good storyteller. I have told the same story Yes, Shelley laughs and goes,
No,
yeah.
I'm laughing at Jason's answer.
What did he say?
I can tell either the Helo crash story or the Bayonet story. Like I was there.
Yeah, because that's one of those vignettes in my life. But you know what? I've never written it down. And the reason I've never written it down is what I told you guys in a couple of episodes way, way back when, and that is I believe the world is divided into talkers and writers, and that Shelley, thankfully, is a very great writer, and I'm a great storyteller. But taking that story and transcribing it onto paper is really difficult for me. So I admire Fenn in that not only can he re-envision each of these vignettes in his life, but then he can put them onto paper and turn them into the memoir. He was writing a memoir, not a vessel for telling you where the treasure was. The treasure, the story of the gold and the chest and the poem and all that is simply one of the chapters in his memoirs, and the hints I think were accidental. I think when he looked back on the other stories in his memoir, he realized, oh, well, that kind of relates to the treasure. So, I should probably do a video on that. That's how long that was.
Journeyman says there are several 1+ and 2+ hour YouTube videos on that railroad. Are you talking about the Cumbres and Toltec?
Yes, it is the Cumbres and Toltec. Well, in the book, he refers to the Katy Railroad, which is near Temple. But the one that we keep referring to as part of my early research into Fenn's treasure was the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad that goes from Chama into, I think it's Antonito, Colorado, and back again. And it does that route more than once a day. But it stops near Toltec Gorge, and it allows hunters, fishermen, and backpackers to get off the train, go down. They go down into the gorge, they hunt, fish, backpack, and then because they keep the train scheduled, eventually they come back up out of the gorge, and they wait for the train to pick them up there at the water tower.
Jason has a question for you.
My Jason?
Yeah.
AGK, thinking of Forrest Fenn's style as a writer and a man, have you ever given consideration to how he would bury the clues in the story? Jason, we, as I just said, we don't think, other than in the poem, we don't think there are clues in the book. We think there are hints in the book, and they come in one of two forms. One form was accidental in the fact that after he wrote the poem and did the clues and I'll put it in the book, then he went back to the book and he realized, you know what? That part of this story could be a hint related to the clues. So I refer to those as accidental. Then he went back and he said, that's not going to be enough. I may put a couple of, what do they call them? Aberrations out on the edge that were not accidental, that are obvious. And the one that makes me crazy right from the beginning is the Captain Kidd story at the end of the chapter where he talks about the treasure and gives us the poem. It is so out of place that it couldn't have been accidental. It had to be incorporated into it. And that's what I think what he refers to when he talks about aberrations on the edge. I think the aberrations on the edge were a way for him to provide a little bit more information about the poem. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. HGK, what do you think of this idea? I think the memoirs to him are his personification of a trapper's journal and not a journal he wanted embellished much in the stories. Perfectly possible, because a memoir, if you were to read the journals of a trapper, Osborne Russell's A Journal of a Trapper, they are literally verbatim his journals and translated such without commentary. A memoir is not that. A memoir is not a journal. While you might use your journals in order to support the development of your memoir, there are two different things. So I don't think it's a journal. And I'm not even sure that I've never seen any indication that he maintains a journal. And the danger of not maintaining a journal, as most people who have spent any time in government will tell you, is that your mind changes things. And that's why I think we find stories that seem to be compilations or unrealistic. I don't get a sense that this whole gypsy thing happened more than once. I think it is a one-time story, but as it evolved, it became a significant story for him. So I think there's a big difference between, say, Osborne Russell's journaling and Forrest Fenn's memorializing. And I think memorializing without journal leads to the potential for I don't want to call them mistakes, but mistakes in memory, exaggeration or embellishment. I think that's how that happens, because you don't have a journal to refer to say, oh, you know what, I didn't actually have to cross the cemetery. The gypsies were on the other side of town, etc., etc. So journals will help you write your memoir if you have kept them. I don't know. Hand me that, please. So for most of my professional life, I haven't kept a journal, but I have hundreds of these, of notebooks. And so I can go back to any time and use that as a basis for, it's memorialized an instance just by the fact that I made notes about it. But it is not a journal. So it's going to be less difficult for me than it was for Fenn, because I don't get a sense that he did either, that he was either a big note taker or a big journalizer. Thank you, Eric Schmidt. Don't forget to mash down on that thumbs up before you guys leave today. YouTube likes it when you like our videos. And then write YouTube and ask them what's wrong with their stupid stream.
And thank you to Xarbin for the super chat money, which we gave a little cha-ching for.
Oh, thank you, Xarbin.
And he says, thanks for the great channel and videos you all produce.
Thank you.
And Amy Smith said, come on, guys, they've not received much money today. Giving is good for the soul.
Yeah, there's something very warm. The gypsies will bless you.
Magic will happen.
Magic, you'll get gypsy magic. By the way, Xarbin is going to be our guest on our panel on the 25th of May. I should give you a heads up that next week is going to be a very short week. We're going to do a Tuesday program and we're going to do a Friday upload, but I'm leaving on Wednesday for the East Coast to visit family. So I'll be gone Wednesday through the following Monday. And so we won't be doing either a panel next week or book club. Right. But we will be doing our Tuesday show.
So you'll have to drink wine without us.
Yeah. Light up on Thursday at 1 p.m. and start drinking wine. And when your significant other asks you why, say, I'm book clubbing it, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's got some legs.
Yeah. Sean Malloy says, do you consider 80 by Sloan to be a hint because it led you to find lignite? I think that would be a perfect hint because it took an armchair rabbit hole and later boots on the ground discovery.
80 was interesting to me in the context of how Fenn used it when he decided in the poem, in the chapter about the poem, he says, like Eric Sloan, comma, at the age of 80, comma, I decided to, and that's when I started, that sentence was when I started to question whether or not he had hidden the treasure when he was 80, because Eric Sloan, of course, passed away when he was 80 after having written the book 80, and I think his reference to Eric Sloan, I think he used it very Fenn-like, like Eric Sloan, comma, at the age of 80, comma, I decided to move forward. And what was interesting about that is because of where the commas are, it could have been like Eric Sloan at the age of 80, or it could have been at the age of 80, we decided it was the former and that he didn't hide the treasure when he was 80. And I know he gets mad when I say that, but he doesn't respond to my emails anyway, so.
You must have said you wouldn't be back until May because they're like, that is a long week. You're going to be gone until May.
No. I'm leaving on Wednesday the 18th and returning on Tuesday the 24th. April. All in April.
Because the 24th...
No, the 25th is Wednesday. Oh,
you have to come back on Monday.
Tuesday. You're right. So
because Tuesday we have not only a show, but we have to do the B2B Expo.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Next Tuesday is going to be our super busy day, right?
Not next Tuesday. Tuesday after next.
The Tuesday after next, the 24th.
Yeah.
It's going to be super
I will be back by Tuesday the 24th.
Might want to. So they said they want us to just leave the channel open on Thursday so they can just have their own chat.
I guess we could do
We'll
that.
just point it at the book.
I guess we could do one of those guys that just has you look at the book and they can just chat.
They can talk about it.
Yeah. Sorry, we're gonna miss you too, but I promised every 3 months I'm gonna go visit family. So.
Oh, they want me to lead the show. Okay.
Yeah, you could do the book club.
Well, without you? Well, Jason could be here. I guess he could sit in for you.
Jason, why don't you and Shelley do the book club next Thursday?
Because you're the one who sets all this up. That's why.
Yeah, true.
Tiny but powerful moment.
Yeah.
Thrill of the chase.
As you can tell, my son also attended St. Michael's High School, where they teach you how to write. They don't let you get out of there without knowing how to write. Commas save lives. Let's eat grandma versus let's eat grandma. All right, that looks like it for the day. Thank you for those that contributed on Super Chat to us. We're going to go back to transition into our outro slide. Okay, that's yours.
Our outro slide says, please like, thumbs up, just like everybody else was saying. Share with your social media. It's very simple to share. All you do is click on the share button, and then a variety of social media icons will pop up, and then you can just click on those, and it will help you to share it to your Facebook, your Twitter, if you have Pinterest, if you have LinkedIn. There's a whole bunch of them there, so check that out and see if that'll work for you. And then make sure you subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications so you know when we release a new video. And
make sure you, if you're interested in participating in our May 9th Fantastic Fan Appreciation event, where we're going to do a Zoom.us panel of everybody, up to 100. So if you're interested, click on that link below, in the description box below. Watch the video and then follow the instructions in the video if you care to join us. Okay? Yes. It requires sharing your email with Zoom Doom.
And as of last night, right after our show, we had 9 people sign up. So we hope that you will join them and be a part of that.
Okay. That's all I got.
Yeah, me too. Oh, and so for Gypsy's Kiss, the book club, thank you so much for watching, and I'm Shelley Carney.
I'm Toby Eunice. Keep an eye out for our Just the Facts video that we release tomorrow at 1 p.m., and then we'll see you guys next week.
And check out my channel at thesofterside.me. I put out a new video today about the 5 stages of dating, how important they are.
I guess I'm going to have to watch that one.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Bye.